Welcome to the MMA Nerd Podcast. I'm your host, the MMA Nerd. Today is Monday, July 6th, 2020, the greatest year of all time. And welcome to episode 10. Yes, we made it to episode 10. Awesome. This has been so awesome, and I'm so glad I started this. And I think I just hit the mic, so yeah, episode 10, I'm still hitting the mic. And I'm so happy to finally reach episode 10. This all started off by me just doing this on a whim, seeing what happens, and yeah, we're not that far, but we're at episode 10, guys. So it's still awesome, the fact that we gotten this far. Speaking on that, before we get into any MMA news or any technique breakdowns, let's start off with some housekeeping notes. I started an Instagram. It's at the MMA_nerd. And I'm going to put the link or the name of my Instagram handle on the bio. And I've been hit up to do a couple of collabs with other podcasts. I think I've been hit up by 3 different podcasts to do a collab podcast or to be a guest or something, and that sounds awesome, and I would love to do that because I just want to be able to have conversations with people and talk some MMA. That's kind of why I'm doing this, is so not only can I break down my own thoughts, but to meet some people and talk to some people and for me to learn, because I'm still learning and I'm still growing, and to be around these other guys and talk to these other people that have been having their podcast for, let's say, a couple years or even just having more experience than me. It would be great to learn from them. And yeah, about my Instagram, I'm going to be putting up the episodes of the podcast on there. I'm going to be posting up clips of the episodes of the podcast, hopefully, and I'm going to be putting up more philosophical posts, like pictures and motivational stuff, and some fighter breakdowns, some short fighter breakdowns, some martial art concepts that I'll be putting up on there, and I'm excited for that. And I want to branch out to doing the same thing, but even bigger for YouTube. So longer breakdowns, which I can't wait to add a video portion to this. It's going to be awesome. And yeah, so if you guys want to go to my Instagram, again, at the MMA_nerd, that's my handle. So if you want, please go and follow me. And yeah. And now let's get to some news. And we're going to start off with some sad news. We're going to start with Khabib's dad's passing. And man, that's rough. Especially as a fighter, losing your coach, I can't even imagine how that must feel like, to have your whole life built up around this one coach, right? Most fighters, they start off with a coach and they grow with them. It's not too common in MMA because I feel like in MMA, people come from many martial art backgrounds, but more and more, as this sport is growing, kids are starting to grow up with their same coach, right? So like a Faraz Sahabi or a Trevor Whitman, and they're starting to really create bonds with them. And I can't imagine losing your coach and being able to move on with your career must be very difficult, because your coach is everything when you're out there. Your coach is everything in practice, because if you train selfishly and you kind of just do your own thing, you'll never make it far. You need a good coach, and in order for a good coach to do their thing, you gotta let them do it. And so not only did he lose I believe his main coach, but his dad, that's rough. And everybody knows that Khabib's dad, him and Khabib has had a great relationship. And there's a really amazing interview of him just talking about his dad, and all he wanted to do is just talk about his dad and how much he loves his dad and how much his dad has done for him and how much his dad has done for Sambo and for Russian MMA. And it's unfortunate and it's terrible. And on the technical side, I I wonder if he's going to be able to recover from this and fight ever again, because maybe his dad was a big motivational factor for him to fight. Or maybe he just won't feel as comfortable ever again to fight. There's also another possibility, which is a big one because Khabib is a savage, is that instead of him drawing back his training and kind of, I would say, retreating into fighting or not wanting to fight anymore, maybe it will make him want to fight more because he wants to fight for his dad now and he wants to make his dad proud and go further than ever. Maybe we might get Khabib that's even more of a savage. But yeah, I'll keep the Nurmagomedov family in my prayers, and I hope that they recover from this and that they live a happy, healthy life. And man, it is rough to lose a family member like that. My coach lost his dad recently, and I saw the impacts on that. And man, he's still struggling. So I can't imagine how he's feeling right now. So I hope and I wish the best for Khabib and his family. And yeah. So, on other news, and this is actually pretty good news. Bad news and good news. Bad news is Gilbert Burns tested positive for COVID, right? For the coronavirus. And that's so unfortunate because I really want to see that fight with Usman. I think Gilbert had a pretty decent chance because he's been fighting frequently, and I feel like that helps because he's gotten into the cage twice with the crowd being very quiet and going in there doing this whole process already. He's kind of gone through it twice, and I feel like that would play an advantage against Usman because or against any fighter if they're not used to fighting without a crowd and having to deal with these extra safety precautions and the difficult weight cut and all that. I feel like he would have the advantage mentally because of that. And physically because he's already been to the cage twice and he's, on fire right now. Gilbert Burns has pretty decent striking, as we saw. He has amazing jiu-jitsu. And I really want to see that fight against Usman. But we got, if not a better fight, with Jorge Masvidal. And Jorge Masvidal seems to have more KO power historically than Gilbert Burns, which makes things pretty exciting. The only thing is that Gilbert Burns had that X factor of his jiu-jitsu that Usman is a great wrestler, obviously, and he likes to take the fight to the ground. He didn't with Colby, but for the most part, he likes to take the fight to the ground and to push a pace. And I want to see how that played out because he wouldn't be able to just take Gilbert down at will and feel comfortable on the ground. So that would have been interesting, but whatever. We have Jorge Masvidal now stepping in, and man, this is going to be a great fight. It's pretty crazy because Jorge Masvidal this is going to be his 49th fight, and now he's fighting for the title. I believe that is the most amount of fights someone's going into a title fight, right? So the most amount of fights someone's going into a title fight for the first time. So it's kind of crazy to be fighting pretty much 50 fights and then finally for the first time you're fighting for the title. It must be a crazy feeling, and you probably feel like it's well deserved at that point because, dude, fighting 50 times is, man, you think by then your career is just at the end and you've been through the ringer at this point making crazy money, or at least you're at the back nine. But Jorge Masvidal at pretty much 50 fights, is now getting a title fight. So it's kind of crazy. I hope he's getting paid closer to what he was asking for, even though I don't think he is, because the UFC doesn't back down in negotiations. They really don't. they would rather put in another fighter than pay somebody what they're asking for. They will do something. I feel like they will lose money instead of giving somebody else more money. So I really doubt that Jorge got nearly the amount of money that he's asking. Maybe they gave him a little bit and they made it seem like they're doing him a huge favor and it was on their terms. I really doubt they were being nice about it because the UFC does everything on their terms. And we talked about this already before. These fighters need to be getting paid more. They need to be having more negotiating power, but that's just not the reality of the. That's just not reality. That's not what's happening. And I don't think that's what happened. I think what happened was Jorge saw a great opportunity to fight Usman, and it's better to be fighting and making money than not fighting and making no money. And let's say they did give him more money. I don't think it was a lot more. That's just me speculating. I can be wrong, but I just hope he is, though. I hope the UFC somehow was like, you know what? We're going to be nice and we're going to be paying him more. I hope so. I can always hope. I can only hope. The crazy thing is that Jorge has a iron chin. He hasn't been stopped since 2008. And that was his first and only time being stopped by strikes. And so that will play a factor. I believe Jorge is very durable. Usman is too, but Jorge is very durable. I don't think the change of opponents is going to be big for Usman because if you look at social media, Usman's brought in Cosmo Alexandre to spar with, and he brought in Justin Gaethje. And I don't know if he's been training with Trevor Whitman, but if he has, that means he's been focusing a lot on striking. I think his thought process fighting Gilbert Burns was that he was going to keep it standing, that he wasn't going to take it to the ground with Gilbert. And I think he focused a lot on striking. That can play a problem against Jorge because it's not like he was preparing for one type of fighter and then fighting another. If anything, it's going to be easier on Kamaru Usman's mind because Jorge doesn't have the jiu-jitsu pedigree that Gilbert has. Now, Jorge does have that X factor of power, but I still think Kamaru's looking at this and he's like, well, the difference between the two is that one guy just has more weapons on the ground. And yeah, maybe Jorge has more power and he's more of a veteran, he has more tricks under his sleeve, but he probably feels like he can handle that and that his striking now is better and he can freely now take him down and beat him up on the ground. Or even in the clinch, which we're going to talk about the clinch portion of the fight because the clinch is going to play a role here. Jorge Masvidal is really good in the clinch, but Usman, as you saw against Woodley, is really good in the clinch as well, and he just wears you out in there. So for Jorge, he has great boxing. He has good head movement. His defense is pretty on point. He adapts well in fights and can even go. He can change his style up. He can go more boxing heavy. He can hop around. Sometimes he's more stationary in a more Thai style like he did with Wonderboy. He just adapts. He's such a veteran and he comes in with a new weapon almost every fight. He tries to give different looks to different fighters so he can make it difficult to game plan for. Very specific game planning. You could game plan for him like, yeah, he's going to strike, he's going to throw elbows in the clinch, he likes certain combinations, he likes certain footwork and certain rhythms, but even then he breaks all those. He's always coming with something new, something different, something that you didn't see happening or you didn't expect. Jorge's really a trickster when it comes to developing tools and using them for very specific fighters or just randomly throwing things out. And I believe that throws people off. And I think it can be possible that he can throw off Kamaru Usman in the fight. We'll see. He's really good everywhere. His clinch is really good. Like if you see his fight with Nate Diaz, he did really great in the clinch. He would just break off and throw elbows, and he was dirty boxing really well. He had really good overhooks, underhooks, clinches, Thai clinches. He's very versatile in the clinch. Nate Diaz is known for being a really good and close fighter, a good clinch fighter. He gets his head under the chin and just rips to the body and just weighs on people. And obviously Nate Diaz has really good cardio, so he can just wear you out there. But that didn't happen, Jorge. Jorge was able to just beat up on Nate, which was crazy. He has good BJJ. He has good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu defense. Look at him against Damian Maia. Damian Maia had his back for a good portion of the fight, and he just stayed calm and defended the entire time. And by the end, he was piecing up Damian Maia. And he has good wrestling defense. Look at his wrestling defense. He's super durable and very, very tricky. Very, very well-rounded. And he's a dog. His mindset and his belief and his just willingness to just bite on his mouthpiece and just gut out round after round and just find his way through. I think Jorge can pull it off in a sense. Now, if we look at Usman, he has a good jab. He's very long. He has a good output ratio. He also has a great chin. I don't believe he's been stopped. And his power lasts for many, many, many rounds. It's pretty crazy the output that he has and the amount of rounds that he can go and still keep that power. And I wonder if that can play a role in the fight because, yeah, Jorge probably has been training because he's thinking any fighter can pull out at any moment. So I'm pretty sure he's training hard. But I wonder if Jorge knew that there's a huge possibility that he can be replaced for the fight, as in, like, he can be a substitution for the fight. Which originally was supposed to be him fighting, and then it fell through, and then Gilbert Burns came in. But I wonder if he kind of just said, you know what, I'm not going to fight, I'm going to wait for more money, and then hopefully if someone does back out, hopefully I will get more money in my favor. But I'm still going to prepare like a full-on training camp and peak and everything for this fight. And man, it's hard to peak for a fight. It's hard to get in shape for a fight. You get beat up, you get bruised, it's not easy to do a training camp. Also, he has 50 fights. So I don't think his training camp is like other people's training camps. I think he stays relatively healthy. I don't think he's had many injuries. He seems to train pretty safely. So maybe he is in pretty good shape for this. Maybe he is ready for this. Maybe he is ready to go all 5 rounds. But we can only guess here and hope that Jorge is ready for 5 rounds. But originally the fight wasn't for him. I'm just hoping he stays in shape year-round, but not only in shape, but he specifically got in shape for this fight, thinking that it was a huge possibility for him to fight for the title, and that he game planned for this and got ready for it. He seems confident. He thinks he's a good matchup for Kamaru Usman, so maybe he has something up his sleeve. Maybe he has a very specific game plan for this. We can only guess. So, yeah, Kamaru Usman, man, his pace is like no other. He outpaced and outwrestled Woodley, regardless of Woodley saying that he was out of it, and he seems to be declining. You saw his fight with Gilbert Burns. Maybe it's a declining issue that Woodley has, and that's why Usman looks so good. But man, if that was prime Woodley, Usman is a savage, and his pace is like no other. His physicality and wrestling and striking is just, it's on point. And he did the same thing to Dos Anjos, and Dos Anjos has broken people like no other, and he out-wrestled and outpaced Dos Anjos. So that's one thing to look at. Wrestling can play a big factor here with the fight because, like I said earlier, Gilbert Burns had that threat of jiu-jitsu, especially from the bottom, and I think that would have been something that Usman would have been really worried about. There's no way he planned on taking down Gilbert Burns and beating him on the ground. I think he's getting ready for a striking fight. But now against Jorge, man, if Usman was able to do what he did to Woodley and he was able to do what he did to Dos Anjos, and he even outpaced and outstruck Colby. It was a close fight, but that pace was crazy. And Jorge Masvidal did really well against Nate and kept the same pace, and he did not falter. I wonder though, if it did go to deep rounds, did he have that cardio in him? And Usman not only has the cardio, but he has the power to last those rounds. So I wonder how that's gonna go. And I'm excited for this fight. I'm super disappointed the fact that COVID's happening, because I'm happy that COVID's happening in the sense I'm not happy, but hear me out. I'm happy that we can hear some like trash talk in the cage. That would be pretty crazy. Hear Jorge and Usman trash talk in the cage. That would be pretty cool. But at the same time, I'm super disappointed on the fact that we don't have a normal build up. Not only is it because it's a late replacement fight, like a short notice thing, but also we didn't get them to do press conferences and all these stare downs and all this craziness, and it would have been great to see a really big build up between them two, because they had this rivalry and Jorge's good on the mic. Kamaru Usman can really get Jorge going, and I think it would have been great. It would have been a great build up, and it sucks that it didn't happen. I think it would have been huge if we had a lot of marketing power and time to build up the fight. I think it would have been a really, 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 really big fight. And now, since it's last minute, hopefully it still sells. I think it will, because Jorge is a draw. He has that BMF title that The Rock put on him, so I think that does play a factor. And yeah, so I'm excited for this fight. I'm not gonna go over Max and Alexander Volkanovski, and man, I am just like messing up names today. But I'm not gonna go over that fight today. I'm gonna actually go over it maybe on around Wednesday, or maybe even tomorrow. We'll see. I'm gonna break down that fight another time. I'm gonna make this one shorter and just make it about Usman and about Jorge Masvidal. The crazy part is that Max was talking about how he hasn't been training with his coaches or training partners, and all he did was Zoom training. I think he's trolling. I really do think he's trolling. But man, if that is true, bet the house. Bet the house on Volkanovski, because that's not good. You can't go into a title fight hitting the bag and like doing jiu-jitsu with your kids or something. Like, that's not good. So yeah, that was today's podcast. A lot shorter. Look, 23 minutes or so in. So yeah, guys, so please again like, subscribe, and follow my Instagram at the MMA_nerd. And yeah, guys, have a great week. I'm super excited for the fights, and I hope you guys are doing great. See you later on this week.